Welcome to the second part of our journey through the French region of Occitania. Without further ado, let's continue. If you like our video, please support the Travel Owl channel with a like, comment, or subscription. Thank you. Modesty is actually a pleasant quality, but in Toulouse, it seems out of place. The city on the Garonne calls itself La Ville Rose. The afternoon light has not bathed the brick facades in a soft, restrained pink, but in a bright orange-red. A much better match for the radiant capital of Occitania. Halfway between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, with the Pyrenees in sight, southern European joie de vivre meets scientific vigor, a dynamic economic metropolis meets thousands of years of history. And the two flow naturally together. No other European city has more employees and scientists working in aerospace technology than Toulouse. There are 27,000 at the giant Airbus alone, plus a network of 400 large and small companies. That leaves its mark, while other cities still draw their self-image primarily from history, culture and tradition. Toulouse has long since expanded its portfolio. Toulouse has not only been an engineering city since modern times. As early as the Middle Ages, the basilica dedicated to the city martyr Saint Cirnin impressed pilgrims on the way of St. James who stopped off here. The church with its double aisles and 21-meter-high vault is one of the largest Romanesque religious buildings in Europe. After its foundation in the 6th century BC, the city of Nîmes was settled by the Romans around 120 BC. During their reign, the Romans left the city a rich heritage, which Nîmes still draws on today. After the area flourished steadily in antiquity, the Middle Ages ushered in a dark chapter. Population figures declined massively. Several districts became increasingly run down. These dark times only came to an end towards the end of the 14th century, when the trade in wine and olives ushered in a new era full of confidence and hope. These golden times continued throughout the 15th century and even expanded as the town became involved in the fabric trade as well as import and export. Increasingly, trade focused on the cultivation of wine and the production of olive oil. Today, Nîmes is known far beyond the city limits for its breathtaking architecture. The Arena of Nîmes is the city's most important landmark. This amphitheatre was built in the 1st century AD. No visitor will fail to notice that the Roman Colosseum served as an amphitheatre. Today, the arena is one of the best preserved amphitheatres in the world and regularly hosts events such as bullfights and concerts. The Maison Carrée is just as graceful. This temple of Emperor Augustus from the 1st century BC has gone down in history as the best preserved and stylistically purest temple from Roman times. The Gorges du Tarn is the name given to the gorge of the River Tarn in the Occitanie region. Parts of the gorge are protected, others are freely accessible and offer plenty of leisure activities. Here, the Tarn has carved its way up to 500 meters deep into the Cevennes. There are both steep-sided narrow passages, such as the Les Detroits cliffs, and wide basins, such as the Cirque-de-Bormes with its colorful rock faces. The erosion has also created numerous caves and grottos. The Gorges du Tarn are one of the most important climbing areas in the south of France. The area was developed back in the 1980s. Hikers can discover the Gorges du Tarn via the hiking trails marked as Grande Randonnée. These major hiking trails or long-distance hiking trails cover longer distances and include stages lasting several days or even weeks. The Tarn has its source in the Lozère mountain and then flows down the Cevennes from an altitude of 1,575 meters. The gorge is a paradise for water sports enthusiasts. There are both family-friendly activities such as canoeing and more action-packed sports such as kayaking and rafting. Kayak rental stations can be found mainly in La Molène and in and around Saint-Denis. From April to October, you can also drift down the Tarn in a barge. The Batelier des Gorges du Tarn offer this trip from La Molène to the Cirque des Bormes. The Pyrenees National Park has a core area of 45,707 hectares and a buffer zone of 206,352 hectares and covers the southwest of the Hautes-Pyrénées department and the southeast of the Pyrénées-Atlantiques department. It is home to an exceptionally rich flora and fauna. With its countless hiking trails, the Pyrenees National Park is a true hiker's paradise. This unspoiled and protected area is home to the highest peaks in the French Pyrenees and 230 high-altitude lakes. The houses in the villages of the Pyrenees National Park provide visitors with a wealth of information and have permanent and temporary exhibitions on the subject of mountains throughout the year. In the Pyrénées-Atlantiques department, discover the mountain heritage of the province of Béarn. The upper parts of the Ospe and Ossau valleys are home to magical nature, with marmots, chamois, peregrine falcons and golden eagles. An ideal destination for an extensive hike on the many hiking trails or for a fishing trip in the fish-rich waters of the lakes and rivers of the Upper Béarn. Two places on the border between France and Spain are always worth a detour: the Pass of Somport with its panoramic view of the peaks of the Pyrenees and the Pass of Portalet with its fantastic view of the symbolic midday peak of Ossau. The city of Carcassonne, known as the largest fortified city in Europe, is located in the Languedoc region of southern France. Carcassonne is located on the right bank of the Aude and is around 100 kilometers from Toulouse. With its 3-kilometer-long defensive wall and 52 towers, Carcassonne is not only the largest fortified city in Europe, but is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The impressive medieval town was restored in the 19th century by the architect Eugène Viollet-le-Duc and, with its fortress La Cité, is one of the most visited sites in France. The entire 3-kilometer length of the defensive wall is open to visitors. There is the tour of the Gallo-Roman city wall and the tour of the medieval West. The Gate of Narbonne with its 2 spur towers and the Count's Castle from the 12th century are also worth a visit and transport travelers back to the Middle Ages. Picturesque alleyways with small boutiques, the architecturally impressive Saint-Nazaire Basilica and many cafes await visitors around Marcoux Square, which is known for its beautiful terraces. A stroll through the Old Town, which opens up behind the double ring of walls, is like a journey through time. Once in Carcassonne, don't forget to visit the Lower Town, which was built in the 13th century and is located directly on the Canal du Midi. It was built in the 13th century during the Crusades. At that time, Aigues-Mortes was located on a large lagoon and was directly connected to the nearby sea and the Rhône by canals and moors. An ideal port for embarking for Jerusalem. But over the centuries, Aigues-Mortes increasingly silted up. Today, the sea is 6 kilometers away. And yet the medieval Bastide can still be reached by boat, on the Canal du Rhône and on the canal that leads directly to the attractive seaside resort of Le Gros du Roi. The 1,634-meter-long city wall forms an almost perfect rectangle and, with its 10 gates and towers, encloses an old town that is a pleasure to stroll through. Restaurants, art galleries, workshops and small shops selling handicrafts and culinary specialties are at least as worth seeing as the historical monuments, such as the Notre Dame des Sablons Church, the Chapel of the White Penitents and the Chapel of the Grey Penitents, both of which date back to the 17th century in their current form. The light-colored, calcareous stone from which Aigues-Mortes was built comes from the quarries in Beaucaire and Les Baux-de-Provence and gives the entire ensemble a unique radiance. Incidentally, the foundations of the medieval town rest on a wooden platform supported by oak piles driven deep into the ground. It is partly thanks to their load-bearing capacity and stability that Aigues-Mortes has been so wonderfully preserved to this day. Rusty red rocks, lush vineyards, the bright blue of the Côte Vermeille. It was in Collioure that Henri Matisse found inspiration for his colourful works. Located at the foothills of the Pyrenees, the harbour town also attracts visitors with its famous wine. In the summer of 1905, Henri Matisse got off a train in Collioure and rented a room in a pub near the train station. In the hot weeks following his arrival, the painter radically changed his style. The view of Collioure shows the parish church of Notre-Dame des Anges, painted with brute force on the canvas. In Faubourg de Collioure, the colors of the boats clash. Critics labeled Matisse and his fellow artists, such as André Derain, with the derogatory name fauves, savages. On the shore, the Chemin du Fauvisson proves that the little harbour town still looks the same as it did 100 years ago when the art rebels arrived. 20 reproductions of Matisse and Derain paintings line the old town and beaches, and the motifs have hardly changed: the Chateau Royal and the salmon-red roofscape, the shore path in the splashing spray and the strollers taking refuge in the dry. At the end of the Plage Bourama stands Notre-Dame des Anges with its tower in the water, as if the little castle of God is about to cast off. A ring of small bathing bays nestles around the old town district of Le Marais, with the Pyrenees towering in the hinterland. The whole thing is an explosion of colors: red, orange, green, purple, yellow. The sky above, very blue, the cradle of Fauvism. Cordes-sur-Ciel, an enchanting bastide in the Albigeois region of the Tarn, has an outstanding Gothic heritage in which all phases of this artistic movement are represented. The primitive Gothic of the 13th century, the rayonnant Gothic of the 14th century and the flamboyant Gothic of the 15th century. Founded in 1222 by the Count of Toulouse, Raymond VII, the bastide has retained its authenticity over the years, which is still part of its charm today. A stroll through the medieval town is simply magical, especially as the streets are lined with artisan boutiques and artists' galleries. Cordes-sur-Ciel is a town that is best explored on foot to fully appreciate all the treasures along the way. Here and there, the bumpy cobbled streets will take you straight back to the Middle Ages. Fortified gates, defensive walls and facades with chiseled Gothic-style decorations exude the typical medieval ambience. In the upper town, there are still some beautiful Gothic dwellings, including the House of the Great Falconer, the House of the Great Shield Catcher, the House of the Huntsman, famous for its sculpted hunting scene, and the Prunette House, which houses the Museum of the Arts of Sugar and Chocolate, founded by the best craftsman in France, Yves Curiès. For a breathtakingly beautiful view, head to the ramparts and enjoy the magnificent views of the Seru Valley. Conques seems to have emerged unchanged straight from the year 1000 and lives in a harmony of blue slate, ochre limestone, roses, wisteria and half-timbered facades. Take your time to stroll through this setting full of authentic and subtle colors and find the traces left by the builders of Romanesque art, from the famous Sainte-Foy Abbey Church to the Pont des Pèlerins over the Douro. Both buildings are UNESCO World Heritage Sites due to their location on the way of St. James to Santiago de Compostela. The Abbey Church was built in the 11th century on the foundations of an old hermitage. Its fame is due to the relics of Saint Fides, a young Christian martyr from Agen. Before entering the Abbey Church, take the time to admire the tympanum of the Last Judgment with its 124 figures, a precious masterpiece of Romanesque art. In the south wing of the cloister of the Abbey Church, you can admire the treasure of Conques. It is one of the 5 great treasures of medieval goldsmithing. Only in France can you find so many objects from the early Middle Ages. Among these priceless relics, each more valuable than the last, the statue of the Majesté de Sainte-Foy stands out. Dating from the 9th and 10th centuries, it is coated in gold, decorated with precious stones and enamel, and is the last example of reliquary statues from this period. Saint-Cirq-Lapopie is a picturesque village in a beautiful setting and offers many sights and activities for tourists. Whether you are interested in art, history or nature, there is something for everyone to discover here. A visit in spring or autumn is particularly recommended, when the surroundings are resplendent in color and the weather is pleasantly mild. Anyone planning a trip to the Midi-Pyrenees region should definitely put Saint-Cirq-Lapopie on their list. Saint-Cirq-Lapopie is not only a popular destination for tourists, but also for artists and writers. As early as the 20th century, many artists and writers discovered the beauty and inspiration offered by the village and its surroundings. For example, André Breton, one of the founding fathers of Surrealism, spent his summer vacations in Saint-Cirq-Lapopie. There are many other sites and excursion destinations in the area around Saint-Cirq-Lapopie. For example, the Pec Mul Cave with its impressive prehistoric paintings is just a short drive away. The medieval town is bordered to the south by the Midi Canal and to the north by the Black Mountains. Minerve is located in the heart of a breathtakingly beautiful setting. The gorges carved out of the limestone cliffs of the Cordes are covered in lush vegetation that harmonizes with the architectural masterpieces, such as the beautiful aqueduct that leads to the town. One of the town's advantages lies in its geographical location. Minerve is situated on a rocky outcrop at the confluence of two rivers, the Brienne and the Cesse, which create a peninsula-like site. Viewed from above, the houses perched high on the rocky outcrop right on the edge of the cliff look as if they are hanging unsteadily over the abyss. No wonder Minerve is one of the most beautiful places in France. Take a stroll through the town centre to see the remnants of its rich past. There is still a high stone tower from the medieval period, the Candela, which used to be part of a castle. The Cathars, who refused to renounce their faith and surrender to the enemy army, also found shelter in the village. Some ruins of the defensive wall can still be seen, as well as building elements that bear witness to the siege of the town. Moissac Abbey is considered one of the strongholds of Romanesque art in France. Its location on the Way of St. James towards Santiago de Compostela has earned it UNESCO World Heritage status. Every year, thousands of pilgrims stop here to admire its tympanum and monastery. Take a look for yourself at the details of the 76 capitals of the monastery, which was consecrated in 1100. The expressiveness of these sculptures and the monumental portal are remarkable. Admire the beauty and simplicity of an extraordinary architectural complex, which is characterized by its unusually good quality of workmanship and state of preservation, unique in the world. Moissac will amaze you with one of the highest concentrations of Art Deco buildings in the whole of southwest France. However, the reason for this is a drama. A flood in the Tarn in 1930 meant that entire parts of the town had to be rebuilt. Discover this cultural heritage from the beginning of the 20th century on a 2 km tour of the town. From the Sainte-Blanche district with the curious pavillon, the Louverium, past the Hall of Paris, beveled shapes, fittings and wall frescoes draw a very special architectural landscape. sacred site and stronghold of pilgrimage, the village of Rocamadour, clinging to its limestone cliff, towers majestically over the Canyon des Alzous. What a wild and preserved environment! Famous for its sanctuaries and especially for its Black Madonna, Rocamadour attracts a large number of visitors and pilgrims every year. Incidentally, the village of Rocamadour is the second most visited site in France after Mont Saint-Michel. After climbing the 216 steps of the Grand Escalier leading to the forecourt of the churches, pilgrims and walkers discover the 7 sanctuaries of Rocamadour, including the Notre Dame Chapel, the Saint-Sauveur Basilica and the Saint-Michel Chapel. Unmissable, the Chapel of Notre Dame or Miracle Chapel contains a statue of the Black Madonna from the 12th century. Near this chapel is the tomb of Saint Amador. The former bishop's palace, whose entrance is also on the church forecourt, houses the Museum of Sacred Art, which contains a collection of religious works from the site. From the top of the medieval village, more precisely from the ramparts of the old castle, the view of the whole site is truly magnificent, as is the view of the Canyon des Alzous and the preserved landscapes adjacent to the regional natural park of the Causes du Quercy. In Rocamadour, visitors can also admire the beautiful mineral formations and the 20,000-year-old cave paintings during a visit to the Cave of Wonders. In the south of France, in the Languedoc-Roussillon region between Béziers and Montpellier, lies the town of Agde. Founded around 550 BC, Agde is a typical Mediterranean town with a characteristic architecture and an important history. The historic town centre of Agde used to lie directly on the Mediterranean. Due to silting up over the last few centuries, it is now about 4 kilometers from the sea. Agde stretches between the river Hérault and the Canal du Midi to the north. The Canal du Midi is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Agde is home to the canal's only circular lock basin. The extinct volcano Mont Saint-Loup is located in the urban area of Agde. Today it is a tourist magnet. The area around Mount Saint-Loup is a nature reserve. From the viewing platform of the lighthouse, you have a wonderful view over Agde. The best way to reach it is via the footpath. The character of the old town is characterized by narrow alleyways and the historic town wall. They give the town its typical Mediterranean flair. The town is a popular excursion destination. Small stores and cafes invite you to stroll and linger. Agde is particularly lively in the high season, in July and August. Many holidaymakers bustle through the streets of the town.